Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. Okay, so the napkins are hemmed and it's time to prepare them to do the hand embroidery. I think that the napkin, because I'm really only wanting these napkins to use them at a tea party where I'm going to be using my grandmother's china. Okay, and the china has pretty little florals on there. And I really think that the colors I selected bring out the floral in the plate. Okay, so let me put my floss off to the side for a minute. Okay, I also need to put my napkins off to the side for just a minute. And I need to do a little bit of work on my embroidery pattern. Okay, now I Xeroxed this. This was page 138 from Sarah Howard Stone's book, French Hand Sewing for Infants. And I'm using this little corner design. Now, I want this design to start, if I bring a napkin over, I want the design to start about 1/4 of an inch away from where I hemmed the napkin. I'm not sure you can see that real well. Okay, so I'm going to use my little drafting triangle and I'm going to move it to where it's about 1/4 of an inch on either side of the design where it sticks out the farthest. And then I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a corner. Okay, now since I'm only making 2 napkins at a time, I'm going to save my piece of paper so that I can refer back to it each time. And as I make my napkins, I can make sure that my embroidery turns out to be in the same position on each napkin. Like I said, since I'm not making them all at one time. Okay, so I'm going to bring my napkin over, line it up with that red line that I just drew. Okay, now since the Swiss Batiste is so thin, I can see my embroidery design right through the fabric. So I'm going to start out, by the way, I'm using a friction erasable pen, and I will put a link down below in the video description where you can order some of these. I like them because once I finish the hand embroidery, I can iron the napkins and my little marks just disappear. Some people don't like them, but I do. Okay, so I got my French knots drawn. Now I'm going to draw my 2 little flowers. They've got a French knot in the middle of the flower and 5 little lazy daisy leaves. Then I'm going to draw my little green sprigs of leaves. Okay, now since I've got a red line drawn on my embroidery diagram, each time I make a napkin, I can repeat this process. So since I'm only going to be working on one napkin right now, I'm not going to do the next one yet. I'm going to set that off to the side. Okay, now I have a 4-inch embroidery hoop, and I'm going to hoop this fabric where I can see the whole embroidery design. There we go. Okay, now what I have done over here is I have 4 needles. Since I'm using 4 different colors of thread, I don't like to have to unthread and thread my needle over and over again. So I have 4 needles loaded up with blue, yellow, pink, and green. And I'm going to start by doing my French knots are going to be blue. And I'm about to show you that I don't do real true French knots. What I do is I create two overhand knots in the same place. And I've been doing it for years and it looks like a French knot and I'm perfectly happy with it. So since I'm not going to carry my thread from knot to knot, what you need to do is you need to put a knot in the back of your thread and cut it real close, about 1/8 of an inch, so there's not a lot of thread hanging out. So I'm going to come in where the first French knot, or in my case, 2 overhand knots, need to go. And I'm going to make my first knot. There's one, and do a second knot. There's 2, and that makes a little bit of a knot. So now I can go into the back of the fabric, and I use and can you see how that's made a little blue knot right there, which looks like a French knot, and I'm happy enough with it. Okay, so I'm going to tie a little overhand knot here on the back. I'm going to clip my thread at about 1/8 of an inch, so there's not a lot hanging over. And then I'm going to make another overhand knot so that I can start on the next faux French knot. I guess I should call it a faux French knot. Make your knot and then cut the thread about 1/8 of an inch away from the knot, and come back in and repeat the process that we just did where the next French knot goes. Okay, now I've got a total of 10 French knots to do, so this will take me a while, so I'll do the rest of these off camera. Okay, so I've got my 10 faux French knots done. Now what I want to do next is I want to do the 2 little flowers. Now I'm going to do this one down in the corner in pink because the pink is a little bit more of a contrasting color than the yellow is. And I'm afraid that the yellow, if it's down in the corner, it won't show up as well as the pink does. So I'm going to start this in the middle by tying a faux French knot in the middle of the flower. Let me see if I can get my camera woman to keep me in frame. Okay, so I have made a little pink French or faux French knot that I'm going to go into the back. And then I'm going to proceed one at a time without tying off my floss. I'm going to create lazy daisy leaves or lazy daisy loops. Okay, in order to do this, I want my little loops to be about 1/8 of an inch long. So I've come up, I'm going to go back to the back right next to where I just came in at, come in at the top of the little line that I have drawn for the top of the loop, come up, catch the loop with the thread that I just brought back in. Can you see that? How I've caught the loop? And then on the outside of the loop, I'm going to go into the back of the fabric again. Right like that. And that tacks that loop into place. Just make sure you have caught the little loop. Okay, now these little loops are so close together that I'm not going to tie off in between them. Okay, so come in, go back out right where you came in at, go out to the end of the loop, catch your little loop with a thread, and then anchor it down. One more time. Come in at the bottom where I'm going to start the loop, close to the faux French knot. Go back to the back, right where you came in again. Bring your needle back to the front at the end of the line. Catch the little loop and then anchor it into place. Okay, now I need to do this 2 more times, and then I'll repeat this process with the yellow floss on the other flower. Okay, so I've got my blue faux French knots done, my pink flower and my yellow flower. Now I'm going to begin to work on the little green sprigs of leaves. Okay, so I'm going to start at the end, and I'm going to do running stitches until I get to the level of where the little leaves poke out. And then I'm going to stop and do a lazy daisy leaf on either side of the running stitch. And then I'll come back to the running stitch and continue on toward the next series of 2 little leaves. Let me see if I can stay in camera here. Okay, so make a loop, come through, catch it, and anchor that loop into place with just a tiny little stitch. And do the lazy daisy leaf over here on the other side too. Make the little loop and then tack it in place. And then come back to the stem where you stopped sewing before and continue following the stem until you get to the next junction of 2 leaves. Just do tiny stitches, about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit less. 1/16 of an inch is a little bit too small. And then just come in right next to where you came out and do another small, little bit less than 1/8 of an inch running stitch. And you can see how I'm up to the juncture of the next 2 leaves. So I'll stop and do 2 more lazy daisy leaves. Okay, now before that final lazy daisy leaf at the end of the stem, looks like I have room to do 2 more running stitches if I make them fairly small. So I'm going to go back where I stopped before Do another little running stitch, go into the back, come back up right next to where you stopped without coming back in the hole that you just went out of, because your thread will come undone if you do that. Okay, now finish the little stem off with a little lazy daisy leaf out at the very end of it. There. And doesn't that look pretty? Okay, so I've got to repeat that for 1, 2, 3, 4 more little sprigs, and then I'll be finished, but I'll be right back. All right, I have all of my embroidery finished, and I have been to the ironing board and I ironed away the crease that the hoop had made on the napkin. Now I think that this is going to be really, really sweet with my grandmother's china. The white from the center of the plate plays on itself, and I think that the flowers really play on each other also. So I did want to mention, you might be thinking, well, Swiss batiste is awfully thin for a napkin. Well, you might want to consider using this same pattern and process to make, like I have made some napkins. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. I made some fall napkins for myself. Made them last year, but I just picked out various colors that I could start using on the first day of fall, and that would carry me through to Thanksgiving without actually having Halloween come into play. But making your own napkins, I mean, there's so many beautiful pretty fabrics out there, particularly when you're looking at the quilting cottons. But give it a little bit of thought to making some napkins of your own, just little everyday napkins. They're easy to make. You don't have to do any embroidery. But if you want to, like me, perhaps have a little tea party with some little friends, and you want some pretty napkins to go with some, maybe some inherited china that you have, this is a real sweet project to do. But this is the final video for project number 19, Everyday Napkins. And like I said, this was made to go with my grandmother's china. Thank you.